Hi, folks. Welcome to week number 3 of Interpersonal Communications online at Hennepin Technical College for summer of 2019. Boy, we are cruising right along here, folks. As you can see on the schedule in front of you, we have finished up week number 2, which was chapters 3 and 4, and included your first analysis paper that was due on Sunday the 16th. And so now we are jumping into week number 3, which is June 17th through June 23rd. And we are shifting our focus from perception and verbal or language to nonverbal and to listening. Very good chapters. It's interesting when we think about nonverbal and listening, these are two topics or areas that are so key in helping us improve our interpersonal communications, yet we won't very often talk about them. They're not taught. It's really interesting, especially when it comes to listening. You think about, your K through 12 education, and most all of us have had some sort of a public speaking course. For sure, going back here to chapter 4, we had some sort of an English or writing course. Many of you, I'm sure, are enrolled in a technical writing or essays or essay fundamentals course here at Hennepin Tech. So we take some time teaching about language and about speaking, but really one of the things when you read chapter 6 they point out is we spend a lot of our time listening, and what we do find is the key to strong interpersonal relationships is the ability to listen and truly work to understand the other person. And so again, it's an important interpersonal skill, but we don't teach it. And then nonverbal is also very important too. We spent some time last week learning about language and learning about being specific and concrete in our language choices. But when we talk about nonverbal, remember that nonverbal is everything that is not language. So when we talk about nonverbal, we're not just talking about how you are dressed, the clothes that you have on, the way that you are wearing your hair, whether or not you have tattoos or piercings. We're also talking about how you move your body, how your posture, how do you hold your body. We're talking about how you say things, your tone, your speed or rate of speech. We talk about your volume. One of the things in my lecture courses, I'll come in, let's say I have a Tuesday morning lecture class, and I'll say, hey, how are you folks? And I'll get fine. It's like, ugh, okay. Your language or your verbal is telling me that you are fine, but the way that you are saying fine with a very sharp tone and maybe a little bit louder tells me that you really aren't fine. I don't know about you folks, but I am guilty of mixed messages, and remembering just that mixed messages are when your verbals don't match your verbals. So, my husband will say, is everything okay? Is something bothering you? And I'll say, he'll say, is anything wrong? And I'll say, no, nothing. Well, it's clear in my no nothing that there is. Or if you look at my face, your facial expression is part of your nonverbal. Eye contact, your eyebrows, anything on your face is also nonverbal communication. So nonverbal is a very, very large category. Again, from the way that you present your body, and that, folks, includes your weight, it includes your body shape, even things that, some of those things, how tall you are, that we can't control, that's all part of it, as well as our tone, our voice, our speed, all that. I have a very good friend who works for Harley Davidson, and she's worked her way up the ranks from being a kind of a regional manager all the way up to she's in a fairly high position. But she has a pretty high-pitched voice. And early in her career, the executive team came to her and said, hey, we think you're going to be fantastic with our company. But your voice, she works from her main demographic. And this is changing slightly, but back then, this is 10 or 15 years ago, her main demographic was men, and they said, you need to figure out a way to lower your voice just a little bit, because she did a lot of phone calling, and that would be the only piece that people would have is her voice on the phone. So she worked with a speech therapist to just slightly lower the register of her voice. Please don't hear that I'm saying her voice is way down here now, because it's not. But it did bring down the tone or the deepness of her voice just a little bit. So nonverbal is all of these things. So it's not just the body, it's the voice, it's facial expressions, it's how you move your body, how you shake somebody's hand in an interview, right? All of that is nonverbal. Here's the really fascinating part about nonverbal is if you have mixed messages, like I was talking about before, where your verbals don't match your nonverbals, folks are going to believe your nonverbals instead of. So even if you tell me that you're fine, I'm not going to believe you're fine, because nonverbals happen at a more subconscious, less controllable level. And so we get some leakage in there. And your nonverbals are going to tell people how you feel about what you are saying. So I think it's just fascinating to learn not only about your own nonverbals, but then how to read other people's nonverbals. Now, here's my safety warning when it comes to nonverbals. Everybody uses nonverbals differently. I might stand with my hands crossed over my chest, and that just might be comfortable for me. We can't, and so somebody else may read that as I'm closed off or I don't wish to be approached for a conversation. But just remembering that there is no, like with language, we could look up, if we didn't know a word, we could look it up. With nonverbal, there is no dictionary for looking up nonverbals, simply because they are very individual. They're based on culture. Our culture tells us, what's appropriate to wear, how it's appropriate to move, all of that. So there's all these other variables that make it impossible to kind of have this universal translation of nonverbals. So be careful as you watch other people's nonverbals. I always tell folks that when I say, how are you? And they give me the really harsh fine, it's like, whoo, wow, you said fine, but your voice didn't sound fine. Are you really okay? So I always encourage folks that if you're getting that mixed message from a nonverbal, to ask somebody, hey, I'm getting some mixed messages here. Really, how are you feeling? Or really, what is your intention? So those are chapters 5 and 6. To go along with chapters 5 and 6 for week number 3, you have a couple of required assignments. We are moving into our second discussion posting. Remembering, folks, I did grade your first discussion postings. Remember, go back to those, look at my comments, look at how, because what I tried to do is compare your discussion posting to the grading rubric and let you know where you did meet the grading rubric and where maybe you were missing or needed to work on. So go back, look at my comments that I gave you for discussion posting number 1, and then make sure, and I wrote this, I know, a couple of times at least, make sure that as you're writing your discussion postings that you are really closely following that grading rubric. The number one thing that folks forget to do, and even probably more tempting in this one, because in discussion posting 2, I'm asking you to watch a video and then write about it. Even though you are writing about a video, please make sure that you are citing and applying at least 4 text concepts. And so you need to explain how those text concepts relate to, in this case, the video, and make sure that you're including definitions and page numbers. Remembering too that you do need to respond to at least 2 classmates, and your responses need to be at a minimum 50 to 75 words. And then don't forget about quiz 5 and 6. And just a quick reminder too, folks, as you are taking quizzes, please remember that you do need to stay under that 30-minute time limit, or you do get a 0 on your test, or on your quiz. So do kind of make sure that you're following along with those requirements. Just peeking ahead really quick to week number 4, you do have your second paper that is due, which is your instruction manual. I encourage you to, if you are working ahead, and I know a lot of you are because your summers are really jam-packed, do make sure that you look ahead. I do have everything posted for this. I have the grading rubric and directions. I have a checklist. I have a sample section. This instruction manual is different than your perception interview and different than your final paper. This is more of a technical writing document, so you're actually writing a manual for yourself. So pay attention to that. So that means that you will have labeled sections with headings. True college composition writing does not have headings. It simply has paragraphs with transitions that help the writer or help the reader follow from section to section. So feel free to look ahead at that. And get started if you are working ahead. The other thing is I just want to remind you too, any of your writing assignments, I am more than happy to take a peek at and look at if you email me before noon on Friday. All of your assignments are due on Sundays at 11:59. So if you want me to look at a discussion posting or if you want me to look at one of your papers, just make sure that you email it to me before noon on Friday so I can take a peek, review it, give you some feedback, and then email back my comments to you. But I am happy to do that. If you are new to or coming back to college or new to college, there are not a whole lot of instructors that will tell you, hey, I'll review your work before you post it or submit it. So please take advantage of my willingness to do that. Truly, folks, my hope is that all of you rock A's on all of your assignments. And if that means that I can review it and help you get on the right track and help you, give you comments and stuff to get you to that A, I certainly want you to know that that's available to you. So there you go. I'm going to switch our screen to our course home listing for, oops, sorry folks, I thought I had turned my phone off, but I guess I didn't, to our course home page for week number 3. Again, just some information about chapters 5 and 6. And this is just a great piece of information to remember. We know that nonverbal is our largest channel. Remember, we learned about channels when we learned about the models of communication in chapter 1. All researchers in the area of communication agree that it's at least 65% of our communication comes through that nonverbal channel. A lot of theorists and research will tell you it's even up into the 90% range. So it is really important to understand how nonverbal communication impacts our interpersonal relationships. So just kind of looking ahead here, this is just kind of for fun. This is a video that went viral, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. And it's called Listen Linda, and it's about a little 3-year-old boy who's struggling really hard to listen to his mom because really all he wants is cupcakes. And mom is telling him, no, you're not having cupcakes right now. And it's just, it's hilarious because this little boy is just so focused on cupcakes. And I think sometimes that's how we go through life. Sometimes we are so focused on what we want or what we need or even what we want to hear that we miss the message. And I comment her that, listen, Linda, honey, which is so funny to me because this little 3-year-old obviously has heard others use that phrase. So it sounds like this very kind of grown-up adult, listen, Linda, honey, phrase coming out of a little 3-year-old as he's talking to his mom. But that has become kind of a catchphrase in my family with my husband and my children and my friends, is that when we really feel like someone's not listening, we'll say, listen, Linda, honey, right? As a way of saying, I feel like you're really not focusing and not listening to what I'm saying. So it's just a very funny and just such a relevant and appropriate video for the chapter on listening. So again, just a quick outline. We're reading chapters 5 and 6. Just a reminder to make sure that you are using the online resources that are available. There are practice quizzes. There's an audio book. If you are an oral or audio learner, make sure that you use that. It'll actually read the book to you. So make sure that you take advantage of that. The practice quizzes and the flashcards, I've had students tell me, are wonderful for helping making sure that they understand and know the material. We've had a couple of quizzes now that we've completed, so hopefully you're getting the hang of our quizzes. I really want to encourage you, if you're not doing as well on your quizzes, to follow my quiz taking suggestions. I will be honest with you and tell you, normally the most, when people aren't doing well on their quizzes, it's because they're rushing through the preparation. They're not taking the time to really read the material. They're not taking time to take notes. And again, I really recommend printing out those PowerPoint slides as a handout and taking notes on them. And so most often the best suggestion is just to slow down and take more time as you prepare and get ready to take the quiz, making sure then when you take the quiz you have the PowerPoint slides out on your table or your desk. Make sure you have the textbook available. Make sure if that mind map that I use, if that's makes sense to you and useful, make sure you have that out. And then also just make sure that you're using, I said earlier, any quiz over the 30 minutes does receive a 0, but make sure that you are using all of that time. If you finish the quiz in 20 minutes, go back and use that remaining 9 or 10 minutes to double check. And if there was a question that you guessed on, then go back to that question and see if you can find it in your notes or if you can find it in the textbook. So I really want to encourage you, use that whole 30-minute window to make sure that you're doing your very best job. Quick reminder that your quizzes are half of your grade, so you do want to make sure that you do really well on those. Again, here's the discussion that you're going to be doing. You're watching a TED Talk by Amy Cuddy. She's fabulous. To me, she's so wise and so bright, and I love to watch her nonverbals during the video. So it's kind of like a micro or a meta analysis, because as she's talking about nonverbals, I love to watch her nonverbals. She tells you about halfway through about a very serious car accident and brain injury, and you kind of then her nonverbals make a little bit more sense. But she's really fascinating. She's really taking this whole idea that your mind controls your nonverbals, which we know, but also your nonverbals control your mind, which is kind of that reverse feedback loop. Really fascinating. Again, making sure that you go through the grading rubric and really follow, folks, what it says there as far as what are the requirements. I know that every instructor does discussion postings a little bit different, so it's really good to make yourself, I actually tell folks, print this out. And I don't tell you to print out very many things, but print out your discussion posting, the grading rubric and all of that, and have it next to you as you're writing your discussion postings. Again, making sure that you respond to 2 classmates, 50 to 75 words, and then making sure that you take quiz 5 and 6. Also, folks, obviously this seems kind of like I don't need to do that, but do make sure that you are looking at your email. I email each of my students every week. Some of you I email more than that, so please make sure that your Hennepin Tech email is up and running and that you are checking it at least weekly. I tell students to be safe, I would for sure check it at least twice a week. If your email is not working, stop into either the Brooklyn Park or the Eden Prairie campus and they can help you get it up and running. I know it gets a little tricky to reset passwords and stuff unless you are there live and in person with your student ID. So there you go. Keep up the great work. I am super impressed with your hard work so far. I know summers can be challenging because it does feel like we go so fast through the material. Keep up. And matter of fact, my encouragement is to work ahead, especially as we start looking, week 5 is right over the 4th of July holiday. So feel free to work ahead. Send me your work. Let me review it just to make sure that you are all on the right track. All right, folks, take care. Remember that I'm a real live person on the other end, and if I can help in any way, please reach out and let me know. Take care, folks.